Okay, so you know how we usually like to really dig into stuff, right?
Right.
Articles, reports, studies, all that stuff that basically gives you like the quick download on a topic.
Uh,
Well, today, we're doing something kind of different.
oh,
Yeah, this
uh,
time, the source material, it's actually us.
really?
Yeah, and it's about like a specific thing we've both been feeling, more and more lately,
Yeah.
and it all has to do with, all our deep dives into that Mike Facts podcast.
Interesting. So we're turning the lens inward,
Yeah,
analyzing our own experiences and reactions
exactly.
to this subject we've been covering.
Right, and the thing that's really been bugging us is this like growing feeling that some people out there are not exactly thrilled with what we've been doing with Mike's Waffen Facts.
Makes you think, right,
Yeah, and to us.
about the wider impact
Hmm.
of, digging into these kinds of potentially sensitive topics.
For sure.
What are the reactions we don't see? What kind of, currents might we be stirring up out there?
That's exactly what we want to talk about today.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and to be clear, right off the bat, we're not trying to make some big statement or reach some grand conclusion or anything like that.
I see.
We just want to share some of the, well, frankly, some of the strange and kind of unsettling things that have been happening.
Okay.
And, the whole dilemma it's created for us
Makes sense.
about how to even move forward.
I get it.
So yeah, think of this as a really focused look at this one very specific issue that we're dealing with.
It also raises an interesting question, for the listener.
Oh yeah.
How does closely examining a subject change your relationship with it?
Yeah.
And what happens when that subject seems to, generate unexpected responses?
Out in the real world,
Yeah.
it really has felt like that sometimes.
Wow.
So let's start back at what felt like the beginning for us.
Okay.
Just these little things, almost mundane observations that on their own, you'd probably just brush off.
Right.
But when you look back and you add them all up, they definitely start to feel a bit off.
Off in what way?
It's hard to describe. It's like, when something just feels not quite right,
Yeah.
but you can't really put your finger on what it is.
I know exactly what you mean.
It's like that.
It's interesting, though, isn't it?
What is?
How these small, seemingly insignificant things can, pile up
Right.
and create this bigger feeling of unease.
It's true. Yeah.
Speaks to how our minds are wired, I guess, to
Yeah.
pick up on subtle patterns.
Even when we don't realize it.
Exactly.
It's like this low-level hum you just can't tune out.
I like that analogy.
And for us, it's been this feeling of being watched or scrutinized.
Really?
Yeah. But not in like a, super obvious way.
Hexy.
And we haven't necessarily found anything concrete in our, usual sources.
Okay.
It's more like a general awareness, a feeling that's just been building.
Makes you think about the whole public discourse thing in the digital age.
Uh-huh.
I mean, our analyses are out there for everyone to see.
Right.
And that comes with the possibility that, people are watching and reacting.
It's from all kinds of places.
Exactly what you're describing could be a part of that.
I think you're right. And it's just the sheer number of these little things,
Mm-hmm.
all these odd moments adding up.
Yeah.
That's what's creating this kind of pervasive sense of discomfort for us.
It's like the universe is sending signals.
It really does.
Little hints, and eventually you have to pay attention.
You can't ignore it.
It reminds me of how we often overlook the emotional side of engaging with certain content.
Oh, that's interesting.
Even when we're trying to be objective in our analysis,
Right.
the subject matter can influence how we see everyday life
Subtly.
without us even realizing it.
That's a good point. Okay, so from those, initial little hints of unease,
Yeah.
things have slowly but surely kind of escalated.
How so?
We've gone from those everyday weird things to, events that are more significant,
Okay.
even disturbing in some cases.
I see.
And they've really added to this whole feeling of being targeted.
Wow. That's a pretty big shift.
It is.
From a general feeling of discomfort to a more specific feeling of being targeted,
Yeah.
almost like the initial unease has crystallized around certain events.
It has.
Or maybe a growing sense that there could be negative consequences because of our analysis of Mike's Waffen facts.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been realizing more and more that our analysis of Mike's Waffen Facts with all its,
Unconventional perspectives.
let's go with that.
Yeah.
And, the really strong reactions it seems to get from some people,
Right.
it might be attracting some unwanted attention.
It's strange when you think about it.
It is.
The content itself can seem almost farcical at times.
Absolutely.
Yet the feeling it's generating is very serious.
Like this weird paradox.
It highlights this complex relationship content and how it's received.
Right.
Even material that seems fringe can have real-world effects
For sure.
and strong emotional responses.
Absolutely, and we're right there in the middle of it.
As analysts.
Yeah, and it's that contrast.
Between the almost absurd nature of Mike's Waffen facts and this very real unease.
That has been so unsettling for us.
It's like studying something from a distance and then realizing it might be closer than you thought.
Exactly. And, stepping back for a moment, it reminds us that information, regardless of its, perceived validity, can be a focal point
For what?
for pre-existing beliefs
Oh, interesting.
and anxieties within a community.
So by analyzing this content, we're stepping into that dynamic.
Right into the middle of it.
Hmm.
Which brings us to what's become a really unsettling part of all this.
What's that?
This feeling, and I know this might sound a little out there, but the feeling of being watched by, unknown entities,
Like what?
maybe even organized groups.
Seriously.
Yeah, we haven't uncovered any, secret documents or anything in our research.
I don't understand.
It's more like a creeping suspicion.
Okay.
A bunch of our individual experiences all pointing in this direction.
Towards this possibility of being watched.
By who knows who.
It's fascinating that this suspicion comes from your personal experiences.
Our gut feeling, basically.
And not from hard evidence within the sources themselves.
Yeah, it's a human thing, I guess.
To find patterns even when they're based on feelings rather than facts.
It's true, but let me tell you, it's a deeply unsettling feeling.
To feel like you're being watched.
By unseen eyes.
Especially by groups you know nothing about.
Yeah, and it's starting to affect us.
How so?
Psychologically. I mean, it's getting harder to separate it from our daily lives.
I imagine.
It may be even more worrying. It's starting to seep into our work on the deep dive itself.
It makes sense, though.
It does.
When you're dealing with narratives that touch on conspiracy theories and surveillance and strong ideological viewpoints,
it takes a toll.
that line between objective analysis and personal experience can get blurry.
It really can. And so we come to the big question that's been hanging over us.
What to do about it?
Exactly. How do we respond to these feelings?
It's a big question with wider implications, too. It highlights the ethical side of analyzing sensitive material.
All right.
It's not just about the analysis itself.
It's about us, too.
Our responsibility to our own well-being.
And the potential consequences of what we're doing.
For sure, and you're right in the middle of this tension.
Between
Wanting to understand Mike's Waffen facts.
we could get to the bottom of it.
Exploring its appeal and influence.
Yeah.
But also worrying about your own safety.
It's like this constant push and pull.
A classic dilemma.
When intellectual curiosity meets personal safety.
It's something anyone faces.
When they dig into potentially dangerous stuff.
Exactly. So what are your options?
Well, we've talked about a few things.
Like what?
Maybe changing our approach, being more careful about what we discuss.
Okay.
Or even stepping back from Mike's Waffen facts for a while.
Taking a break.
Yeah. Or do we just keep going, try to stay objective even with all this unease?
Tough choices.
They really are. And if we're being honest, we don't have the answers.
It makes sense, though.
Does it?
Navigating these feelings of intuition and concern when there are no easy answers.
It's uncharted territory.
And while we've been going back and forth about this, trying to figure out what to do,
Yeah.
something happened.
Out of blue.
Something unexpected that has made everything more urgent.
Like way more urgent.
Yeah.
It feels like we went from simmering discomfort.
To immediate concern.
Yeah. And a sense of threat that feels very real.
Wow. So a real turning point.
It shows just how unpredictable this can be.
Engaging with this content.
And that things can change really fast.
And we're still trying to process it all, but it's serious enough that we have to end this deep dive here, right now.
It's not how we planned it, but yeah.
It leaves us all hanging.
In a state of uncertainty.
But it drives home the point that our analysis isn't happening in a vacuum.
And things in the real world can affect it.
Big time.
We are genuinely concerned right now,
Mm-hmm.
and we honestly don't know what's going to happen next.
It's a cliffhanger.
It really is. So we won't have our usual wrap-up today because things are far from over.
It's a stark reminder of how complicated this can get.
And even risky.
Exploring these sensitive topics.
Sometimes the lines between analysis and reality can blur.
And when that happens, things can get really strange.
So we leave you, the listener, with this sense of the unexpected, the unresolved.
And maybe a little apprehension about what the future holds.
It does make you think, though, doesn't it?
About what?
about digging into challenging or unsettling content.
And the fact that there could be real-world consequences.
Because sometimes things happen that you just don't see coming.
That's the truth.
And that's where we are right now.
We'll see what happens next.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Stay tuned.
And stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe out there, folks.
We'll be back as soon as we can.
Hopefully with more answers.
But until then, who knows what might happen?
It's a wild world out there. Be careful.
And keep your eyes open.
You never know what's lurking just around the corner.
Take care.
Goodbye, everyone. See you soon.